In this video, I'm going to talk about my favorite or top reads of 2020, and there were many. The last year, I've made it a point to just read more in general. I've been reading between 50 and 60 books per year the last couple of years, and it's not like they're short 200-page books. I feel like a big chunk of them, like several hundred pages long, 1,000 pages long. So I've been doing lots and lots of reading. Historically, I've always been really bad about only reading typical like white male authors, and 2019 and this year I've made it a point to read more women authors. So that's why the last couple of years most of the books that I have read have been women. I have been quite proud of that, and I've found lots and lots of stories that I enjoy reading that are in all types of different genres. I'm gonna give myself a little pat on the back for that one. But anywho, my favorite books of 2020, the top spot is going to go to the entire Broken Empire trilogy by Mark Lawrence. So book 1, Prince of Thorns, book 2, King of Thorns, and book 3, Emperor of Thorns. In my opinion, that trilogy was flawless. Just Mark Lawrence's storytelling ability, his writing style, his work has tons of epigrams in them. He has really simple, pithy ways of communicating complex ideas, and it just made reading that trilogy such a joy. The protagonist is unlike any other protagonist that I've ever read before. As the series went on, I just really loved all of the cultural references and what that story ended up being about, and I really appreciated Georg Ancraft, or Jorg, his journey and his development throughout the books. Top spot, that trilogy was perfection, in my opinion, like ultimate favorite read of this year. The second series goes to the Mistborn Era 1 trilogy by Brandon Sanderson, so The Final Empire, The Well of Ascension, and The Hero of Ages. That was my first journey into Brandon Sanderson, and the trilogy blew me away. The Well of Ascension was probably my favorite just because that first twist really hit me hard. I found all of the characters really intriguing, especially Vin. I just love how epic the ending of that trilogy felt. I play a lot of like RPG type of video games like Final Fantasy, and reading that trilogy felt like playing those games to me. It was that enjoyable. I really enjoyed the hard magic system with the medals, and it was just awesome. And there were certain things when I was reading them with like the Colossus, it reminded me, the Colossus have these giant swords that they carry around. It just reminded me of Final Fantasy, because you have these human people carrying around these big ass swords, you know, that they shouldn't even be able to lift, but you have people like Vin who, with specific metals, she can increase her strength, and so she is able to hold like a Colossus sword. I'm a big RPG fan. I loved Mistborn. It felt like that. It was fun. It was exciting. I liked the character development. The ending left me so sad, but it was perfect. So first one, Broken Empire. Second, Mistborn. My third favorite read of the year was Nemesis Games by James S.A. Corey. I started reading the Expanse books a few years ago, right when the show started on Sci-Fi. I was so intrigued by this idea of, you know, people colonizing the solar system after a couple hundred years. What does that do to humans' bodies? So with the Belters, how they became really thin and acclimated to, you know, zero or low G gravity. I loved all of the geopolitical conflicts going on with Mars and Earth and the Belt. It was just really cool. But Nemesis Games, it was book 5 in the series so far. I've only read the first 6 books, but book 5 was kind of that point where all of the threads that were let loose in the previous books kind of converged. And so we got lots of character development for people like Alex and Amos, who is one of the most interesting characters. The first time really that the main protagonist, James Holden, was kind of off on his own without his family, without his Rocinante family. This book was just amazing. The plot, the character development, all of the backstory that we got, it was perfect. So that is probably my favorite book of the Expanse so far. I only have 2 more before the final book is released. I am looking forward to it, but not. It's kind of bittersweet. Okay, so we have Broken Empire, Mistborn, Nemesis Games by James S.A. Corey. Next one goes to Wheel of Time. I started reading Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. I've gotten through the first 4 books. I have reviewed each of them, so I'll link the playlist here. The first 3 books had carbon copy structure, basically, in terms of like plot, like what happened. Different new creatures are introduced into the story. There's like a big boss fight at the end. So they all were structured the same in the first 3 books. The 4th book I really struggled with just because the storytelling, everything was crammed into 1,000 pages and there were so many huge plot developments that were revealed to you in a series of 8 or 9 flashbacks in the middle third of the book, and it was just too much for me, like how that was presented. It almost felt like an encyclopedia type of read to me, just because there was so much information. It felt less like storytelling to me. The first 3 books, especially The Eye of the World, even though it's reminiscent of, you know, Lord of the Rings and some very traditional fantasy type of structure, you still had like this suspense and the storytelling element of things kind of developing out that way. Whereas the 4th book was just like, shit is happening constantly. You're at a 10. And so that was just hard for me personally to digest. I understand that for a lot of fans of the Wheel of Time books, this is their favorite book. It hasn't been for me. I do plan to return to this book in the future. I know I've offended some people by my somewhat of a rant in the video that I did on book 4, but I plan to continue and I will finish the Wheel of Time series in 2021. And then finally, for the 5th one, I'm gonna do The Poetry Pharmacy. This book, it's just a collection of different poems from different poets. I experienced so much depression and anxiety this year that there were a lot of poems in this that spoke to me personally and made me feel better and kind of take a breath and refocus, and I just really loved this collection. I've tried recommending it to several people now, but it's just such a good, and I like how the book is structured too. They put together whether you're feeling depressed or you're going through the death of a loved one, or you're going through like a divorce, or you're struggling with anxiety. The book is divided into, you know, different ailments that you could be experiencing, and then it prescribes like a poem to help you work through those feelings and hopefully better equip you to overcome whatever it is that you're going through. And so I really love the Poetry Pharmacy collection. So that is book 5. So again, we have Broken Empire, we have Mistborn Era 1 trilogy, then we have Nemesis Games, which was flawless, Wheel of Time, and Poetry Pharmacy. Honorable mentions, I do want to give like some YA love, so I'm going to put Red Queen, that series. It's like 4 books plus a 5th book that's a collection of short stories from different perspectives. So Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, and then the Burning Glass trilogy by Kathryn Purdie. Burning Glass and Red Queen had a lot of similar things in it, in which there's like kind of a romance triangle between the protagonist and 2 royal brothers, and then it's a lot about this idea of pushing forward this idea of democracy instead of monarchies. Both series dealt with that. Burning Glass had more of like I think it was a Ukrainian cultural influence on the book, so it was very much, it had Shadow and Bone type of feel to it. That was probably a pleasant discovery of mine. So really, those 2 books, I think for YA fantasy, those were pretty top notch in my opinion. I always have to include Sarah J Maas. Sarah J Maas is probably one of my favorite female authors. I have to include her. As an honorable mention for my favorite reads, I will say her adult fantasy debut, House of Earth and Blood, Crescent City Book 1 is probably a favorite too. The first 5 chapters of that book like breaks your heart. It's setting you up for this horrible, tragic event to happen. And then chapter 5, you're just like shocked by it. And then the rest of the book is kind of like this mystery to solve the big conflict of this book. So I'm looking forward to the sequel, hopefully end of next year, if not 2022. But I just had to throw Sarah J Maas's name there. Those are my top reads of 2020. I'm hoping to have just as strong a reading list in 2021, and I am looking forward to it. I will probably next week do a least favorite. I don't want to say worst books of 2020 or like disappointing books of 2020. So I'll probably word it as like my least favorite books of 2020. And these are books that were very meh and I didn't particularly love. So I'll do a very quick one. So least favorite quickie next week. Wow. Next week is 2021 already, and I am here for it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you liked what you heard, and I will see you next week. Bye!